Welcome back to our brick plug part, session 3, where we are going to learn about adding planes for additional sketches and the swept and the loft command. So let's get started. What we want to do is we want to create our stress relief and our wire coming out of this side of our brick. This is a curved surface, which makes it very difficult to sketch on, but we're going to create a plane that is just off of this surface, draw on that plane, and then extrude out. To create another plane, you have to create a plane from an existing plane. So I'm going to use the right plane, which is parallel with what I want to do. Under Features, you go to Reference Geometry, Plane. Now I just have to move it where I want. Now notice there are 3 references here. I want it parallel, so I'm not really worried about moving it or anything else. There's another feature we're going to use in just a little bit that will show you how to use the second reference and what that means. But for this piece, we're just going to move it to where it's pretty close to the edge. Gives me something to draw on and then extrude from. I'm going to hit OK, and there's my additional plane. I'm going to square this up. And now I'm going to draw on that plane and then extrude out. It's already highlighted. I hit Sketch. I'm going to draw a square. I want that square to be 0.375 by 0.375. And I want that square centered. So I'm going to dimension. And we know what the middle dimension is, 0.437. That centers it. And then I want it from the top, I want it eighth of an inch. So there's my sketch. And as you can see, the sketch is not on the surface of the brick, it's actually on the plane itself. But now I want to extrude it out. So if I go to Features, Extrude, the default is already there. It sticks out just a little bit and gives me a nice little surface to be able to create the stress relief on. And there's our surface. Now this plane is nice, it worked for us. We can't delete it. If we delete it, then we get rid of this piece here because they're connected. But if I come over into the left pane, I can hide it. I left click on the plane and then click on Hide. So it's still there, but we can't see it, which is good. Now we're going to create the stress relief. The stress relief is going to have 2 different profiles. If I come up here, we're going to use the loft command. You need 2 different profiles, and then you connect those 2 different profiles, or at least that's how we're going to do it. It's a pretty simple way to learn the loft. Our first profile is going to be a circle on this surface. Then we're going to create one out here in space. So let me square it up. I'm going to click on that surface. Let me get out of that. Let me click on that surface. I'm going to add a sketch. I'm going to create the circle. Now I want it right in the middle of this. I could just draw it and then dimension it, or I can find out where the center of that line is, which is right there where that orange square is. I can figure out where that one is on that side, and then when I bring this out, you'll notice they come together. That tells me I'm centered. I want to make this a 1/4 inch. It already is, but I'm going to make sure. And there's my sketch. That's the first profile for my stress relief. It's there. It's gray, so you can't see it if my cursor's not on it. Now I want to create the second one. Well, I want it parallel with this profile here, or that sketch. So if I click on that surface and I go back up to Features, Reference Geometry, and hit Plane, I can create a plane based on this plane. I want it 5/8 of an inch, so I'm going to go 0.625. and hit OK. So there's that plane that my second profile will be on. I'm going to square these up. And I'm going to draw a circle on that plane. I'm going to sketch. The nice thing is since they're squared up, all I got to do is find the middle, click on it, and it shares the center point. I'm going to make that 1.2 a little bit smaller. If you look at stress relief on your phones or whatever else, whatever wires, you'll notice that there's a little taper to it, which is why we're using the loft command. Okay, I'm going to exit sketch. There's my sketch out in the middle of space. I have this plane here. I don't need it anymore. I'm going to hide it. So I have this circle here and this circle here that I now want to connect. So I'm going to go to Features, Loft, make sure the top box is connected, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the top of that circle and the top of that circle, and as you can see, it creates the cone. Now, why is it important where you put and where you touch these when you want to connect them? If you don't do them in a line, like I have them here, like roughly 12 o'clock, if you don't do that, it twists this, which can give you a cool effect for other things, but for this, we don't need it. That looks pretty good. I'm going to hit OK, and there's our stress relief. Now let's draw our wire. Our wire is going to come out of the surface right here. There's two different things we need to do. We're going to use the swept. To use the swept, we need a profile, which is going to be the circle on this surface, and we need a profile, or I'm sorry, a path, which is going to be the wire itself, which we're going to draw that on a plane that we create. So once again, I'm going to square this up. I'm going to sketch on that surface, and I'm going to say my wire is about 1/8 of an inch thick. So I'm going to draw it in a circle. I'm going to go 0.125, and now that profile is done. Now I got to connect or create where I want the wire to go. The wire, we're going to use the spline tool, this tool right here. But that spline tool has to be drawn on a plane. I don't have a plane out here in space, so again I have to create it. I'm going to create it from the front plane. This is where you learn about the reference geometry. So from that plane, I want to move it so it's directly perfect, intersecting that circle or that center point of that circle. Here's how you do that. I go to Features, Reference Geometry, Plane. Now it's on this side. I don't want it over there, so I'm going to go flip. Now it's too far over. Okay. I'm going to say I want this plane parallel to that plane, but my second reference point is going to be the center point of that circle, and as you can see, it moved it directly to the center point. So there now is my new plane, and it bisects that circle right in half. That's where I'm going to draw my spline. So it's already highlighted. I hit Sketch. I'm going to hit the Spline tool. The Spline tool you can do all kinds of cool stuff with. Now, since that plane is directly on that center point, I want my spline to start at that center point. So I'm going to click there. I'm going to come out a little bit, like straight out. Bend it a little bit, bend it a little bit more. Just kind of make it look like a wire that's coming out. And I'm going to end it there. So now I have my two entities. So if I go to Feature, Swept Boss, my profile is this circle. My path is my spline, which now you can see looks more like a wire. I'm going to hide plane 10. Now you can see it's straight. You can do other things with planes to make it all zigzaggy and go all over the place. But there pretty much is a brick plug for a cell phone.